Like it's
Thank you.
nice.
I tell people they ran out of leather, so they only could do one lapel. So
I like it.
my budget, my budget. Thank you. Hi,
Want to
Gretchen.
trade?
Okay,
Hi.
Oh.
so we're at three. We need one more to have a quorum. Because
I'm
Jack, unfortunately, you don't count for the executive
Hector's
committee.
here.
Oh,
Can
Hector's here?
Hector's
Hector's
here
here.
too.
Oh,
Hector,
good.
can you
Okay.
go? Can you go? Can you put your camera on?
I'm trying, but I don't think I'm
I'm
able to.
here as well. This is Cecily.
Cecily's here as well. So
That's
just so
so good.
Hector and Cecily, so in order, just so you
Oh, I
know, it
see
may not
now.
matter. In order to be seen on the live stream, you actually have to have your camera on. So, all right,
Yeah. I won't be able to do it the whole time, but
okay,
uh
appreciate it. Thank you
Oh,
all. Okay, so we are live streaming. So whenever you guys want to go,
I'm going to
you
start.
guys, you guys can start. Yep.
Good. The meeting will come to order. The time is now 1:32 p.m. on Monday, February 12th, 2024. This is an executive meeting of the District of Columbia's Commission on the Arts and Humanities. My name is Reggie Van Lee, chairperson of the commission. I'm wearing a black jacket and a black sweater. I will now call the roll. When you hear your name, please answer present. And I'm calling the roll for the executive committee, even though we do have other commissioners perhaps on the line. Gretchen?
Present.
Good. Kimber? Julianne?
present.
Cicely?
here.
Carla? Hector?
Here, present.
A quorum is present. Thank you. This is a meeting of a public body held in open session and is governed by the Open Meetings Act. Please address any questions or complaints arising under this meeting to the Office of Open Government at opengovoffice@dc.gov. Notice of the meeting was posted in the DC Register, on the Commission's website, dcarts.dc.gov, and on the DC Office of Open Government's Central Meetings calendar at open-dc.gov. The meeting is being conducted in a hybrid format. So we're all remote on this using the Cisco WebEx virtual meeting platform. The meeting is being live streamed to the Commission's YouTube channel. An electronic recording of the meeting will be available for viewing online following the conclusion of the meeting. I will now read the land acknowledgement. Every community owes its existence and vitality to generations from around the world who contributed their hopes, dreams, and energy to making the history that led to this moment. Some were brought here against their will. Some were drawn to leave their distant homes in hope of a better life, and some have lived on this land for more generations than can be counted. Truth and acknowledgement are critical to building mutual respect and connection across all barriers of heritage and difference. We begin this effort to acknowledge what had been buried by honoring the truth. We stand on the ancestral lands of the CAH and the Piscataway people. We pay respects to their elders past and present. Please take a moment to consider the many legacies of violence, displacement, migration, and settlement that bring us together here today. And please join us in uncovering such truths at any and all public events and to use such truths to guide the legacy of this Arts Commission. Is there any objection to the agenda that was previously circulated? Hearing no objection, the agenda stands as adopted. Welcome everyone, and thank you to what I think is the first executive meeting of this calendar year. We have a full agenda, and we're going to try to squeeze it all in an hour and a half. Following my welcome, let's go to the monthly full commission meeting and committee meeting cadence. And this agenda is largely Julianne's as chair of the governance committee. Most of these items are governance issues. So Julianne, I'll turn it over to you to guide us through the discussions.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen. I think I can figure out how to do this. Okay, I've shared my screen. All right, so this is the report that I put together for the meeting today. Just to make sure it's clear, I probably spent about, 3 months on this, just kind of getting to know the bylaws and all of that sort of stuff. So the aim of this work is to enhance the flow and communication among commissioners, between commissioners and staff, and the commissioners to the public via our monthly meetings. Also, to continue to ensure with our IDA framework and the advancement of policies and procedures as an independent agency. Furthermore, I incorporated the revisions to the bylaws that were outlined as Goal 5 in our governance and organizational culture of the 2021 and 2024 strategic plan that I can't see that were implemented yet into these documents. I also just put in there just sort of like the charge in the governance committee that is in our current bylaws, stating that this committee does have the role to establish guidelines, policies, and procedures, which shall be approved by the full board, and the committee shall draft amendments or revisions to the bylaws to guide the operations of the board based on the principles of inclusion, diversity, equity, and access. The most important thing to know about what I'm presenting today is we really don't have any decisions that are being made except for where I highlighted in red below. And so what I'm doing is outlining the flow of the work that in order to make these changes and incorporate things from the previous strategic plan will basically start today and go all the way until August. So today is February 12th, and we are at the executive committee meeting, and I'm sharing the proposed revisions. On March 18th, because the governance committee meets quarterly, we will report on what came out of this meeting and any further conversations or feedback between now and then. And then in June or July, the executive committee will meet to review the bylaws edits that are directly into the bylaw, that go directly into the bylaws. We're not looking at that today. We're just looking at things that are highlighted. And then on August 19th, they will be presented to the full board, and we will vote on them and feel a great sense of accomplishment, not just because we did those things, but because we worked together as a team, and it was a positive, hopefully a positive journey along the way. One key thing is in order to do this, the governance committee does need to have a staff person or some part of the staff that is also working in alignment with this. And that I look to the executive and the chair to make sure those things are aligned so that the staff is able to focus on this so that we're not impeding on any other workflow. So just to go through it, we're gonna go monthly public full commissioner meetings and committee meeting cadence, specific committee function or method, and then the officers and administration, and then the arts and humanities sponsorship, which we know that is something we need to talk about and have a plan moving forward. Okay, going into monthly public full commissioner meeting and committee meeting cadence. And what I mean by cadence is that we have a set way that we do things, which then lets us have a rhythm and a flow and a steady state in order to govern and work as a team. All right, so the first 4 bullet points are directly taken from the bylaws. In our bylaws, it states that we do minutes. We currently are not doing minutes. And from what I can tell, we haven't done minutes since November 21st, which is on the last minutes I saw on the website. Just to recap, minutes are not dictation of the meeting. They're what the decisions that were made. Section 4, it states that the secretary sends out the notice, agenda, and the committee reports. And then also in that same section, it says that all of the quarterly committee reports are sent to the secretary at least 4 days before the meeting. And then the last of the 4 bullet points says that the executive director reports monthly on the strategic plan and the 44 task force recommendations. The next 3 bullet points are not in our bylaws at all, but I think they're things that we actually care about or would help with the overall cadence of how we work together as a group. We don't have in any of our bylaws or anything that I have I have looked at that has that we read the land acknowledgement and that we have a set way to do self-descriptors at public meetings. I think these are great things that the agency does, and I want to see if we can make them a little bit more formalized. There's nothing really outlining communication to commissioners on cancellation and or rescheduling of monthly meetings outside of what is in the Open Meetings Act. And there has been some communication, like some issues with new members coming on and not actually knowing how everything flows. And there's nothing outlined for committee chairs and setting and notifying members of staff or fellow members of the committee on how we set our monthly committee meetings. And then the final bullet point is the revisions outlined in the 21-24 strategic plan. It had been stated at that time to reduce the number of commission meetings from monthly to bi-monthly or fewer. So I'm bringing that up from the documents the agency has and putting that forward as a question again. Also, the committee meeting schedule that's outlined here is what is currently in our bylaws. In confirming with the chair, we have said that for executive committee meetings that a quarterly meeting schedule makes more sense. So we're already moving forward into adjusting the schedule into the current way that we are working. Okay. Under where I have edit, update, proposal, just discussion. I just like, how do we feel about minutes? Are we going to do them? And if we are, how do we set that up with the staff and so that we're flowing and approving them and putting them up on the website for the public? And if there is a way that we can do an SOP for how the meetings are set up with the staff so that committee members know who exactly to send documents to and how they get sent out to the full committee or to the full group. The other thing in the 21-24 strategic plan revision recommendation was as facilitated by the chair and with the assistance of a third-party professional with governance expertise, the governance committee will conduct an annual evaluation of commission and or commissioner performance, including the performance of the implementation of the plan. So I'm bringing that up. Is that something that we're still thinking of doing, or are we moving on to the next plan and setting up an implementation of that new plan? So I'm going to stop at this section before we move on to the next section to see if anyone has any feedback they would like to give on this section.
I do, but I'd like for others to go first if they have something to say.
Okay.
Does anybody else have any reaction? Well, I'll say, I'm sorry.
I would just say that I'd value the SOPs related to the committee meetings and that sort of thing. So that would be helpful, especially being a new chair of a committee. And if we are to move to these committee meetings to a quarterly sessions, are we still expected to do monthly updates in the general commission meeting? Just wanted to, put that out there to see if we have a response related to that as well.
Hi, this is Gretchen. The grants committee meetings have to stay on our monthly cadence pretty much so, and then change if they have to, but right now they do have to be monthly per se. So that's one of the things that I would like to make an exception to for the grants committee.
Yeah, but it says monthly now for grants, right?
This is Hector. Oh,
Yeah, it does now. I just want to make sure that
We don't change that.
exactly.
Sorry, Hector.
yes. No, thank you very much. And by the way, I think that as far as the education committee is concerned, I would like to move that to a quarterly meeting because I think that oftentimes the follow through on whatever is discussed or committed at these meetings generally is a time factor that we don't have monthly updates on immediately. or be just too small of a sector of what, so I think a quarterly meeting would probably be best suited for our particular needs, as I have been observing.
Yep. Any other comments?
I just want to add that I feel like the needs of, and it may just be the idea committee, but it could be other committees, could change over time. Meaning that, like, if we put something into our bylaws that says this is what we're doing, and then suddenly we need to be able to change it. Like, I'm just wondering what that effect would be like if I were necessary.
Yeah.
Well, the bylaws currently state for each committee
At
that
least.
it says like at least or
At least.
as needed, so it's not, it's more about like what is the overall cadence so that as a chair, as a committee chair, the base of what you're supposed to do.
Yeah, that was going to be my first comment. The bylaws say at least. And so you can meet every day if you call the meetings in time with the, advance notice and that sort of stuff. But we want to make sure that we don't have months and months and months to go by without a committee meeting. So to answer your question, Cicely, at least gives you a chance to have meetings yet more frequently if you wish. But so my comments to this is I think the Arts Education Committee can and should meet quarterly, at least quarterly. And again, Hector, if you need to meet more regularly, you can, but the bylaws would not force you to meet on a monthly basis if there's nothing to say a monthly basis. Similarly, the executive committee should meet quarterly, at least quarterly. And we can call meetings when we want to, but at least quarterly. Finance committee, I think, should be monthly. Governance, if you think quarterly works, is fine with me. Grants committee has to be monthly. Idea committee, I defer to you, Cicely, of how often you want the bylaws to require you to meet, as opposed to how often you may want to meet. And then public art, we should get Carla's view. Since we're not going to make decisions today, we're just sharing points of view. So that's my view on that.
Well, okay. Sorry, go ahead.
On the minutes of the meetings, I thought that since we record all the meetings, that those recordings stood in place of minutes. But if we have to have separate minutes, then so be it. But I thought you want to record what happened in the meeting. And since we have those recordings, that would suffice. But I defer to the group as to whether that's fine or not. The SOPs, I certainly agree. We need to have SOPs in place to provide the clarity that Cicely and others have asked about. And in lieu of the governance committee doing the annual evaluation of commissioners and performance, that's what I've been doing. I've had those meetings each year but I'm happy for the governance committee to pick it up.
Okay. All right. I just want to state with the schedule, most of the things that we are talking about, if not all, really would not go into effect until next fiscal year due to approving it in August. So that gives us time to confer with each other, just to make sure that's clear. All right.
And we should run all of this by Bega as well, to make sure that, because last time we
this is where I really need to have, like, a lot of other committees have like a staff person assigned to them, and that staff person goes to the committee meetings. So if there is some way that can get integrated, just because I mean, I'm doing a lot, but it's like, I think it would be great to have a staff person.
Yeah, and I can talk to Aaron offline to see if and how we might make that work.
Okay. All right.
But Gretchen, do you about to say something? I thought I heard somebody else speak. Sorry.
Okay.
Well, Jack, since Jack is here as well, Jack, do you have any reactions? Is Jack here?
I'm here. No, I'm here. I'm here. I'm eating my lunch.
Oh, no. Sorry. Any reactions from you?
No, I'm listening. It all sounds very good to me. It's a lot of hard work and continue to do it. So I'm taking it all in. Thank you, though.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any other commissioners on? I just want to make sure that we get the voice of everybody. So sorry, Julia, continue.
It's okay.
I think Aaron responded in the chat.
Yes, that we can get the legal support. Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you. Okay. Moving on. Specific committee function or method. All right. Current bylaws. include other committees, including ad hoc committees, standing, special, or advisory, may be appointed via a resolution by the chairperson with the board approval as deemed necessary. That's in section 11. Then section 5, governance committee under the leadership of the chairperson and the committee shall conduct an annual review and performance evaluation of the executive director. Then in the strategic plan, it was outlined agency staff report to the executive director, who is responsible and accountable for managing all day-to-day operations and performance of the agency, including staff and budget, including the implementation of this plan. As the executive director supervisor, the CHA chair will evaluate the performance of the executive director annually. Also in the strategic.
Let me just stop you there. So as it ends up, Aaron and I are meeting on Wednesday for an hour and a half to begin the process of, because Aaron has been here just a year, right? So now is the time to do that. And so I wanted to work with him to work out an assessment process that makes sense to both of us. And then we will engage the executive committee and we'll engage the full set of commissioners in that process as well. But the first conversation of that starts on Wednesday of this week.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a question. Reggie, we talked about this before, but yeah, thank you, Aaron. You also had a mid-year review. Good.
Right.
Yeah, I knew about that. Our there's a system there's a part in the personnel system for DC government. And Reggie, you and I talked about this before, whereas there's a performance review format. Is that being used? Is that being used for all of our employees or what? Does anybody know?
Aaron is
Yes.
saying yes, it is.
Okay.
Yeah, and Aaron, part of our conversation on Wednesday was I wanted to know what process did we want to use with you around your assessment. Will it mimic what is done with the rest of the staff, or might it be different or whatever? So there's a lot of figuring out how we want to do this. We want to do the mid-year review that I did was just on my own, but not required by the bylaws. But now I want to make sure that we are following the bylaws and what this annual review is.
Right, and then maybe take a look at the one that's actually in the DC government system because that's where it all gets uploaded.
So Aaron, could you check that out and bring that to our meeting Wednesday, whatever is in the system? Is that doable?
Yes, I can do that. And for
Okay.
the executives do not have normally, if we were under the mayor, that review would be coming from there. And so I can show you, I can bring an example of some of the things that have done. We created, I sent over to you, Reggie, the strategic plan for the year. And so we usually use that as a metric. And just as you would do SMART goals and so on and so forth, based upon that.
Good.
Yeah, but there is something in the system for executives.
Usually for those who are in the office of the mayor, for independent agencies, there's not something, but I will double check that and I'll make sure we have that at our meeting on Wednesday, so I can have facts.
All right. Looks like we're nailing that one. High fives all around. Okay. Yeah. All right. Third bullet point. Per the 21-24 strategic plan, a governance and nominating committee should be formed to facilitate communication among commissioners on governance matters. Commissioner appointments should be based on a current mix of commissioner skills and an assessment of the attributes and skills desirable in new commissioners, balancing the need for experience commissioners with the need to add new energies and skills to the commission, as well as a balance between the representatives of large and small organizations and diverse individual artists. Based on the governance committee input, the CHA chair will confirm with the mayor's office of talent and appointments regarding appointments to the commission.
So you should know that as we looked at the empty spots, we were indeed trying to balance people in the fine arts and performing arts and visual arts, different wards, different demographics, all of that. And that was the substance of my submission to the mayor. And I did ask, each asked all the commissioners if they want to recommend anybody, and we pulled that together and submitted. The reality is the mayor does what the mayor wants to do. So that's an interesting input, but what comes out on the other side sometimes doesn't resemble what we came up with. And then even those suggested appointments from the mayor have to be approved by the city council. And so sometimes what comes out on the other end is not even what the mayor started with necessarily. So I think this is a great aspiration. I think we certainly should submit a slate of people to the mayor for consideration. We should perhaps even have conversations with council members to get support for them. But at the end of the day, we don't have the power to make that happen necessarily.
I guess it's more about having the nominating committee, which I don't know that we have that. And then making sure, because I know I've heard people talk about wanting to get someone from Ward 7. And just from the work that I do professionally, I could recommend 3 to 4 people from Ward 7 that are grantees or are community leaders. And I haven't figured out how to do that yet. I'm not sure on the timing of when that happens with the Mayor's Office of Talent and Appointment.
Appointments are made for the July 1 service period for all of us. And so that stuff has to go into the mayor before that. In a number of our meetings, I've asked specifically for Ward 1 and Ward 7 candidates. I've asked for that to the full commission in the meetings in which you said, Julianne. So we can put more process around it, but it's not as though we haven't done it. And I'm loath to create yet another committee because we don't have enough commissioners for the committees to have. So if you want to combine governance and nominating as one committee, which is what this suggests, and you all take on the nominating role, that would be great. And I certainly would welcome help in trying to solicit people to fill certain spots we have on the commission. So I'm all in favor of finally acting with this bylaw.
Okay. Does anyone else, before we move on to the next section, do any other members have things they'd like to say in regards to this?
Yeah, this is Hector. You can make a recommendation at any time, I believe, to the Office of MOTA. So you can actually submit and they will process the whole, how would you say, presentation and evaluation, and then eventually get to the mayor. But you can, if you have 3 candidates, as is your case, Julianne, please submit them because, obviously get their approval first so it doesn't surprise. That would be a way that you could do it.
Exactly.
Without,
to Hector's point, anybody can submit a nomination. You don't have to be a commissioner or anything.
Right.
It would be better if we coordinated amongst us, but you should always feel free to submit. I mean, at this moment, we have 4 open slots, which is going to go down to 2 open slots when we go to the next fiscal year because they're bringing the number of commissioners down. And those slots have been there for a year.
Yeah.
And not because we haven't submitted names to the mayor, but that the system, the bureaucracy has not produced anyone other than Jack coming on board now. We had 5 spots. Now we have 4.
Okay. Well, it seems like we're going to get into...
Jack was the miracle baby that got born.
That's what to say. Here again.
That's the way of putting it.
Okay. I'm going to move on to the last page of this presentation. All right. This is under the officer section and the administration section. Outlined in the 21-24 strategic plan, it was stated that only the chair and executive have the authority to comment or represent the agency in communication with the public and or other units of DC government. Also, the executive director reports to the commission in the person of the chair. These 2 things are not necessarily in our bylaws. And I think they're both clear ways in which we govern and also ways that enables the chair and the executive to lead and work as a team. So in the edit update proposal section, I just said, let's think about adding some clarifying language under those 2 sections. Does anyone have anything to add about that?
Yeah, this is Hector. At our last meeting that I recall, we had some discussion about being a little bit more open in discussions with members of the team in general, particularly if you work as a chair of any given committee, that you're going to have some interactions that go beyond the chair as well as the executive director. Um, and those were discussed as very positive things to have, where would be pretty well open to that. Obviously, with a judicious perspective, but at the same time, that these interactions would be, in fact, encouraged. So, is it going to go back to the same situation? Are you proposing to go back that every question is lined up with the chair, then the chair goes to the executive director, going back to that protocol, or are we just how are you trying to frame this?
I'm not necessarily proposing one way or the other. I'm just showing the language that was used in the strategic plan, and then also, I guess, putting that against sort of how we have been operating or speaking with one another, and just seeing if we want to leave that language behind or if we want to, how we want to move forward with this is really I whatever works for the entire group to make sure that we're governing and leading the agency in the best possible way, I think is what I'm advocating for.
I agree. I mean, I think it needs to be discussed though,
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
because I could see either way where everything is centralized through me and Aaron or others, so that we have multiplied voices could be involved, as long as we can make sure we're coordinated in those messages.
correct.
Well, sort of as an example, like I'm doing this work and I don't have a staff person assigned to this committee. And so I'm not getting the staff time that may be required for the effort. So I need to get aligned with the chair and the executive to make sure that the workflow for the team, the staff team, can be allocated to this. And those are the people that I think can make that decision, not just me emailing and calling and doing that sort of stuff, but making it so that I have to confirm with this work that I have outlined that it is able to be assigned to a
But
staff.
I thought this was a different point. I thought this is who can represent the agency in the public, in the press, with other DC agencies.
Oh, it
That's
was,
what I thought this is.
well, it's both. We were sort of, I thought we were kind of talking about both.
But even the executive director reporting to the chairperson, that's still not an issue of staff interactions, right? I mean, I hear your point, but it's not relevant to these dot points here.
Yeah,
Yours is
Well,
a different point.
okay. I I guess if the direction is not coming from the chair or the executive, how would the staff know to work with a committee chair on
Right, but
something?
that's a different point than these points. One of the
right.
points is nobody can represent the agency in the public, in the press, with other agencies other than the chair and the executive director. The other says that Aaron reports to me. So none of that has to do with the point you're making. If that's a third point, you should add that point to your list of things we need to sort
Okay.
out. But I could also see how um, some other commissioners may want to feel like they have some leeway to comment in the press. I think it's dangerous, but it's not for me. This is not a dictatorship. So we do need to see, are there different points of view, and do we need to reflect that here, or are we fine with this language? I'm fine with the language, but we need to make sure others are as well.
I have a question. Not just commissioners, but also staff, and not just press, but social media. How do we address staff making comments on social media? Somewhere, I'm not sure that's at this point of the agenda, but I think somewhere we need to discuss it.
I agree.
Yeah,
I'm making a note to
Thank
talk
you.
about that later.
Yeah. I mean, these bylaws did not contemplate um, some of these social media. I see what you're saying here, Aaron, but they didn't contemplate some of the social media things that have just come up as a result. So we need to have a full conversation, make sure that the policy reflects everything, or it is added to in some meaningful way.
Right. And you just said we have a social media policy. I'd like for the executive committee to review it, unless Reggie's already reviewed it.
If I've seen it, I don't remember. So that's to be discussed, Julianne. We should put that on this.
I'm
The
writing
social,
it down.
Yeah.
so there's there's the staff question you asked, and there's the social media question that Gretchen asked.
All right.
Also, by the way, if I may add to that, it just also as a way of determining what our role in terms of commenting with the press.
But this suggests you all have no role. This suggests only me and Aaron.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, that's good.
That's the question, though. Is that okay or is that not okay? Right.
No, I think it's fine. It's good because I think it's dangerous for anyone to have express opinions on the subject matter that they may not be fully versed on.
Right.
Now, there are some people on the commission that are that talk to the press, and they are in roles other than that of the commission. So if we need to flush out, how that's worded in our articles, because I mean, if you're saying something and you're representing the commission, that's one thing. If you're saying something and you've got another hat on, as long as that hat is defined, we just need to flush through that.
Well, the language is clear. Have authority to commit or represent the agency. That's what it says. So if you're not committing the agency or representing the agency, you're representing yourself or some other organization, we can't tell you what to say. But you can't say it's on behalf of the Arts Commission.
I know. And, that's obviously been something we've had to deal with over the last couple of years. We just have to make sure that people define themselves as who they're representing when they're
That's a real
speaking.
issue.
That's
So
the real
I think
issue.
also something that I think is important when we look at this language, the way that it's saying that the chair and the executive have the authority. I think we can both say that the chair and the executive speak to the commissioners. Like that has happened in real time since I've been on this. So it's not like the chair and the executive are in a vacuum. And so it may be that we want to look to adding clarifying language saying that just to sort of add that layer of that the chair and the executive I'm not sure on the correct language, but do you know what I mean? That they're conferring with the entire commission when they're doing their work.
You can say only the chair of the executive committee reflecting the perspectives of the full commission have authority to. So, keep us honest that we don't just go out there and say whatever we want about Usher's performance last night.
I loved it. I love Usher. I'm a big fan.
New
He
York
is the
One
most
gave him
chaotic, positive person. I love him so much.
New York One gave him a 4.
I saw a lot of people say negative things, and it was just
anyway.
I really love. Okay, let's keep moving, guys. All right.
Yeah.
This is just my idea, and we can either not respond to it and throw it away later, or just surrounding just so much accepting of this idea. So this is the idea to do it that the agency does a triannual review of the bylaws thoroughly, not just what's currently in our bylaws, stating that they can be amended at any regular or special meeting of the board by two-thirds vote, provided that the amendment has been submitted within writing 2 weeks prior to the meeting. I think in doing something like this, it sets up the agency to work in a more like a cadence that sort of keeps it like we're gonna move that to when we do the triennial review of the bylaws instead of doing things here and there and not having a thorough review. Also, it's positive to update your bylaws. It's not a negative. The fact that we have the courage to look at these details and make changes and always adapt to how we need to be governing is totally positive. So this is just a thought I had as far as flow of things. If anyone wants to respond to that idea.
I think it's great. I mean, when we updated the bylaws last year, they had not been updated in 8 years, 9 years. What was it, Gretchen? Some long period, which is ridiculous, right? So, but if nobody knows the periodicity with which you should update them, it doesn't happen. So I like 3 years.
Yeah.
Welcome, Kimber.
I think it's where people may roll off because some of us have 3-year terms. So
all of us have 3-year terms.
Yeah. So anybody else want to say anything about this? Okay.
Nothing different. I agree with it. I think having it written out will keep it from not happening for 8 years again. So
yeah. All right, our last item that has red lettering, which means we have to come to some sort of decision about something or put that off and make a final decision at our full commissioner meeting. All right, art and humanities sponsorship. The current bylaws, we've had a lot of discussions about this, and these are the two sections that I think deal with what we have the authority to do in providing sponsorship. Sponsorship means money, just so we're clear. Current bylaws, section 3 says the committee shall have the authority to approve expenditures of no more than $3,500 for art and humanities purposes. Also, under section 2, the chairperson commit the agency with the appropriate funding mechanisms to partnerships, new programs, and other new CHA endeavors after consultation with the executive director and with the majority vote of the board. These commitments shall not conflict with contracting authority of the DC Office of Contracting and Procurement. My understanding is that the staff currently has 9 sponsorship proposals that they are looking at. And if you think that there's 9, each one gets 10, that's $90,000. So one, we need to uncover our path to confirm this. And then what I'm sort of suggesting is that the staff maybe does up a one sheet on what the sponsorships are for, what the dollar amounts are. We confer about that over email, and then we do a final vote on it at the meeting that we have next week. Does anyone have any thoughts on the path that the agency can provide art and humanities sponsorships?
In particular, Gretchen, do you have a view since you've been here the longest and dealt with grants the longest? Gretchen? Did we lose Gretchen? We lost Gretchen. No, Gretchen is muted. Oh, she's stepped away evidently. So anybody else have a view on this? Including Aaron? Do you have a view?
I would have a
Right.
question. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
No, I would just have a question. Give me an example. Agency currently has 9 proposed partnerships. What would an example of one of those?
Julianne, do you have an example?
I don't. I think actually I have a paragraph if this is helpful. Chris Noem, who's on the events team, I asked him to write up like what is this? Like what is a partnership? Like what is a partnership?
But I think Jack is asking a specific request for funding do we have? And Aaron may know that.
Aaron would probably be better to answer that. I don't know the full list.
If you have 9 of them, what are some of them?
Well, we have some, and when we look at I want to kind of put a caveat here. I have somewhat shied away from just looking at just cash sponsorships because we have grants specifically for projects, events, and festivals. And so any of the type of sponsorships that we have entertained or that have come to us have been in the form of what I would like to say are partnerships. This is ways that we would be able to reach an audience we would not normally get a chance to look at or perhaps see, and that the next year they would be encouraged, of course, if this is a repeat situation, be encouraged to go in the direction of our PEF grants, whether it's organization or individual. And so one of which was, I think, Artomatic is what was first brought to our attention. They have offered to have a type of space that would be dedicated to the commission during their activation, where we would be able to share what we do as a commission to the audiences that participate with that. The next one was the National Cannabis Festival. They have one of, I think, DC's top artists is having an opportunity to stream to, hundreds of thousands of people, but also reach out to a great number of our residents that I'm almost certain are not really within our wheelhouses. And that's to sponsor that particular space during their festival. To add a caveat to that, when we did the World Cultural Festival, some of the issues that we did that sponsorship, I think, at 80,000. Some of our concerns with that sponsorship was that the World Cultural Festival was not guaranteeing pay for the DC for their artist and we could not guarantee pay for DC based artists specifically. With National Cannabis Festival, there's a space that is set up to support specifically DC based artists, but also showcase them, showcase our work, so on and so forth. And so that's something that's being considered right now. I believe Chris has a full list of the 9 that have come to us that we have been considering.
Yeah. So, Chris, do you want to share those?
Um, I don't know if it's a space in this very public forum. I'm happy to share the names that that been
Oh, that's
asked
right.
about
We
funding.
can't. Yeah.
Yes.
No,
We're in
you're
a
right.
we're in a
Right.
public forum, but I did what I shared with Julianne were the requirements that where we internally have been processing who should be considered for a sponsorship, an understanding that this is outside the grant, and they have a form that needs to be filled out. So when they come to for sponsorship, it's basically a form that says, what are you doing? What is the impact? How are you? Why are you choosing this type of funding outside of the grant cycle? And our general reasons have been, one, this is the first time event and you're doing something, or you're doing an event that is, you're going above and beyond what you have done. And it's just because of the timing, it happens to be outside of the grant cycle. But for this one time, you're seeking a sponsorship to grow something new that's going to benefit more people. So, and then otherwise, you have to be within the grant cycle. So those are our kind of like the 2 categories where we're saying that we judge whether or not, these sponsorships, partnerships outside of the grant cycle make sense.
But I just put in the chat the paragraph that
Hello.
Chris actually put together. I'm sorry, I didn't put it in here. I didn't know we were going to get to that part of it. So the question is, because some of these are pending currently, and so we do want to be responsive to those people trying to engage with the agency. And so what is the best path to enable us to be responsive about that? Is it confirm? Because I think in the public forum, we don't want to list out everything individually, but we can do that over email and then have a vote at the next commissioner meeting. Does that sound appropriate?
Well, if the amount is under $3,500, the executive committee could do it ourselves. We still should do email, like you said, but then when we call the meeting, we could treat it as we treat it in the commission meetings when the grants come forth. You don't know who's getting it. It's a block of things, but it's gone through the criteria. If it's over $3,500, then it has to go to somewhere else. And again, is Gretchen back? Because I'm curious, is that somewhere else grants? Is that somewhere else public
I'm
art?
sorry, I'm back. I had to leave to let someone in my house for a repair. I
No
am
problem.
back. What's your question?
So the question is, we're trying to figure out, we have 9 of these possible sponsorships that
Mm-hmm.
are being requested and don't seem to have a clear process by which we do it. And I know if it's one, and oftentimes they ask us a day and they need the money tomorrow, right?
Right,
And so for the smaller things, we put into the bylaws the ability of the executive committee to approve up to 3,500, and we can create a process for doing that offline, not the public forum, and then come to the public forum just to have the vote as we would have a vote for grants. But
right.
how have we historically handled things like that? And do you have a suggestion of how we may handle over $3,500 requests?
I think if that's the number that we're going to use, then the form that Christopher was um, mentioning needs to go out to, in this case, all 9 of these people if it hasn't gone out, because some of them I think need responses before the end of the month or by the end of the month. So I think whatever that form is important because they do need to meet certain criteria for DC government monies. Anyhow, so that form would cover that. If it's above that, then my thought has always been that it needs to be fully discussed within the executive committee meeting. Now, everything can't go through the grants process because right now we're working on grants, for instance, for next year, next fiscal year. So many of the activities that we're being asked to sponsor are coming up before October. So that would hinder that. So we've got to have something in the middle maybe until we put this into place next year, if that's next fiscal year, if that's what we decide to do. But there needs to be some process now to address the ones that are coming up in calendar year 2024.
Well, let me ask Chris, are all of these, are there some that are $3,500 and less and some that are over? What's the request, the size of the request?
They range from there actually are not any that are under 3,500. These are all sort of, because under 3,500 we've done other things. The requests are probably from 5,000 to 20,000.
Okay, so we have to have a separate process.
All of them, yeah.
Is there a recommendation of what we should do here?
Well, we have two things. Somebody put up on the screen about the P cards being 5,000. I'm not
So
sure
it has to
who.
be, it still has to be approved, Gretchen. I mean, we
Yeah,
can
no, I
pay
know,
them
but
through
I'm
the P
just
card, but
no, I know. I just wasn't even sure who put that up.
I
I
think
missed
Chris
it.
did.
It was
Oh,
Chris.
okay.
That was Chris.
Oh, okay, thanks. Okay, yeah, no, I agree. Um, I'm more of the mindset of a committee approving the process and the awardees, especially if they're outside the grant circle. And so many of these, as we've seen in the last several years, have been outside the grant cycle.
But how have we done it in the past?
In the past, it was a matter of, well, it depends on how far back you want to go. It's been at a point where we've actually had the executive committee, the chair, the executive director, and the executive committee discuss and award the grants that way. It's been that way all the way to the opposite end, where we've just had the decisions made by the executive director. So I think it's up to us now to come up with a process that this group, will now continue with.
So Aaron, do you have a preferred process you'd like for us to use? Or do you need to think about that more? Or?
Well, something that with the form and with the process that we created internally, I think that if we had a threshold, like, so for instance, say there was 20,000 and above or 20,000 and below, I think 3,500 becomes a bit of a
It's from a different
weirdness,
century.
right?
It's from a
But
different century.
but I was
Uh-oh.
Oh,
Aaron,
no.
you went mute somehow. You need to come
Mute
back up.
and blank.
Yeah, there you are. We still can't hear you. I think your
I had
speaker.
a glitch
There
there.
you
I'm
go.
sorry.
There you go. Yep.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry to glitch. But I would, if we use the process that we have internally, if we would be able to, we don't have like an endless amount of money, so we can know how much money that we've set aside for partnerships and or sponsorships, and we could, evaluate according to the form that we've already set aside, and that we could get that over to either the committee or whomever on the commissioner's side would like to approve it if all the prerequisites have already been made. Similar to like what we did with the World Cultural, that was brought to us. We all met. We came together with a solution, and we implemented it. Some of the sponsorships that happen somewhat normally happen interagencies, so we don't consider like the LGBTQ the Office of LGBTQ Affairs, for their events that happen at the Lincoln Theater, or the Asian Pacific Islanders. That office also does something very similar. So
Right.
that we support.
So do you want to bring to us a proposed approach that we can approve?
That'll be fine.
Good.
I
Now,
think
how do we deal with the timeliness of these 9 waiting? I mean, can we get that done in time to try to meet their need, or?
Yes, we can.
is
Okay.
may I ask a question? Is there a way of bringing in like an ad hoc group of evaluators, or grant review panelists that can actually in short order review a request so that it still retains uh, a, a part of the practice that we already use in grants giving, that is basically much shorter turnaround, and perhaps put a limit as to the amount of dollars that can be used under this particular process, so that it's fair and as fair and equitable as possible, so that we don't lose opportunities of supporting arts community-based arts programming and or artistic expression that could benefit the city. So we need to maintain ourselves very nimble if we can.
Mhm.
In order for this to move. So I think, Aaron, what you're saying is to create it within the structure that you have, but perhaps use a way that is still objective through a panelist structure.
I would shy away from the panelists, and the only
Really?
reason I would say that is because I want our first question across the board is, can this be a grant? Should did you just miss the deadline, or should you push this toward the grant side? Um, I think that from the level of expediency or from the level of being able to get those dollars out the door for those sponsorship requests that do come out. On top of that, um, trying to ensure that um, this is not like a guaranteed pot of money.
Correct.
It's not, so I think it would be more advantageous since the commissioners, our finance department, finance committee, the executive committee are more aware and more abreast. Some of that is inside baseball, I would say, and we already have a robust granting and panel system in place. I think adding another panel situation over here would be, because they're not grants and they're not competitive in that sense. And it's, I think but again, I defer to the commissioners. I can bring something to Reggie based on what we do internally. I think the process internally will kind of parse out what wouldn't fit and which would make a lot of sense. We don't have a whole lot, but I don't want, since this is a public meeting, I don't want to give the impression that this, we get more requests usually around June, July, because the misnomer is that we are in a position that you spend it or you use it or you.
You're going again.
Yep, he's gone.
Well, I want to agree with Aaron until he comes back.
Yeah.
In the sense that it's not a grant to me. This is
Right.
something totally different. So I
Yeah.
don't think it should be part of the grants process at all.
Right.
But I'm happy for the staff to come back with a
Yeah.
proposal under some conditions. One condition, it needs to be there needs to be fidelity to the process. In the absence of a panel, there needs to be some fidelity around objectivity, bringing expertise to the table, blah, blah, blah. So that needs to happen. The second thing is, if you use the executive committee, you need to be aware of the fact that this is a public committee. And so how can we do that sort of wording and not share information? And we need to figure out a process around that. So, and it needs to reflect the fact that these things are off the radar screen of a grant, but come at times that are more regular with more periodicity than our normal sort of meetings. So whatever body decides needs to be able to meet quickly. It can't be a public meeting, and there needs to be fidelity to the process. With those three conditions, I'm happy to hear what, Aaron, you come back to us with that solves the problem.
Thank
I
you.
agree.
We'll bring something to you.
Yeah.
Well, and just to outline, like, this is what our current bylaws state, right? That doesn't mean that we can't change them. Currently, we have that we're going to change them at this date, which I still think works fine, even if we make this course correction in what is this, going into the second quarter of the year.
Could you enlarge the print a little bit? Because I'm having a hard time seeing it. Sorry. It seems like it was larger earlier. Good, thanks.
Okay,
so what are we looking at?
So this is the schedule for making changes to the bylaws, this section here.
This is aside from the bylaw discussion, because it needs to happen sooner. We need to resolve these 9 things faster. So once we figure out how we resolve them, we can put that into the bylaws. But we can't wait for this bylaws timeline to solve this problem.
Okay, so I just want to be clear. Are you saying that you want to update section 3 of the executive committee to change this total?
No, I'm saying I want Aaron to bring a recommendation to us of how we fix the problem. And to the extent that fix requires a change in bylaws, we'll do it. But I don't know yet, right?
Okay, I got you. Okay,
Are you okay with that, Aaron?
I am, and you have to forgive me. I'm having some technical issues, so I'm getting kicked off. This is my computer issue, so it has nothing to do with the program. But I'm okay with that. Yes.
Great, great. And you know the urgency to get it done, so I'll leave it to you to get back to us in the time that makes sense for these 9 requests.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right.
Reggie, does that mean that we need to set up another call after Aaron gets back to us? And some of them are actually, I think several of them need responses before the end of February.
Yeah, I don't know the request, so I don't know the time. So I said I defer to Aaron on when he gets back to us and when we then need to meet again. If we are the body that's going to approve it, I don't know what his recommendation will be, right? Maybe
Right.
the executive meeting is not the body. I don't know. So I leave it up to Aaron to be sensitive to the time issues.
All right. That is the end of the governance committee update. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, let me make sure I got everything. So monthly full commission meeting and committee meeting cadence, we had covered that. CAH
Yeah.
partnership, sponsorships procedure, that's what we just talked about, right?
Yeah,
Specific committee function or method, did we cover that?
we did.
Okay. Then I know the articles 4 and 7 we covered. I know the triennial review we covered. Proposed timeline of revision of bylaws we covered. So now I have 3 other agenda items: PAC meeting on 2/15, color the curb, and standing public arts grant review and recommendations. Who are the people? That's not you, Jillian, right?
That is not me.
So who is the PAC meeting on 2/15 at 2 p.m.? Who brought that agenda item to the table?
I'm going to speak up here and say Carla sent those over, but she's not available. I believe they're all public art related, so I don't know. I don't know what the procedure is. Those all 3 of those came as agenda items from Carla. So
Well, we will
maybe they just get moved to the
yeah,
regular commission meeting.
we'll have to table them to another meeting because we don't know what the topics are. Any other, while we're together, any other new or old business we need to cover?
Possibly the upcoming change for the commission meeting. You might want to share that with the executive committee, Reggie.
Yes, yes. So Reggie has a schedule problem on the regularly scheduled meeting, the February meeting, which was the 25th. Is that correct?
26th.
It was the 26th.
Mhm.
And I'm hoping that we can move the meeting. Aaron tells me it's easy to move the meeting to the 26th if it is virtual. If it's a physical meeting with the change with Octo and all that stuff is a problem. So I was hoping that the executive meeting would be okay with us moving the February meeting to be a virtual meeting, not an in-person meeting, and on the 27th.
We suggested which was better, the 27th or the 28th, and a couple of people are still. We asked for folks to get back to us by the end of the day.
Okay.
With which day works better.
So 27th or 28th. Anyone? I know that I would prefer to do in-person meetings. I think it adds some gravitas to our meetings, et cetera. But every once in a while, we may have to do virtual. I hate to be the reason behind us thinking about going virtual, but does anybody have any real issues or concerns about us moving the February meeting to be virtual? Gretchen?
No,
Kimber? Julianne?
Nope.
Cicely?
no.
Hector?
No, not at all.
Thank you. Thank you, Aaron, for bringing that up. So, or was it Chris? So we will move the meeting to either the 27th or 28th. There being no further business.
Reggie,
Jack had a question.
Oh, I'm sorry, Jack. Yes.
just
Oh,
two.
Jack. Yes, I should have. Jack, are you okay with us moving the February meeting to be a virtual meeting?
Yes, I share your sentiment. I would much rather meet in person. I just think they're much better meetings, but because of your conflict, I'm fine. I can't do the 27th though.
I can't either.
Oh,
No,
okay.
Can no
No.
one do the 28th? Anyone have a problem with the 28th?
28th is fine. That's what I
28th
responded to.
I can't.
Yeah.
You cannot do the 28th.
Yeah, I have both commitments on both dates, unfortunately. And commitments I can't really get out of. One is a board meeting as well.
I voted for
Anybody
the
else?
28th.
Everyone else that wrote back in said they can do the 28th.
Yeah, this is definitely, I can do the 28th.
Okay, so Hector, apologies, but we may have to go with the 28th.
I understand perfectly well. No
You can
problem.
send your body double.
Yeah.
I also had Reggie, a second question. And
Yes.
give me, these are questions I just don't know the answer. Do we ever buy like a table at a event, like the Arts Commission? Does that ever happen? I just got invited to an event, and I'm sure everybody did, Washington Performing Arts, and I'd like to go, but do we buy a table and we go, or do we have to buy our own individual tickets, or how does that all work?
So
Well,
usually,
no, go on, Aaron.
yeah. So you would buy your tickets unless someone's going, there's not a speaking role, or if you're there specifically to represent the Arts Commission. We do not usually buy tables as far as the Arts Commission because many of the grantees already receive GOS funding from the agency.
Okay.
And so if there was an additional event, so say if Washington Performing Arts was having a festival or an event where there could be a space that could be dedicated to us, then that's when we would participate in that particular. But usually for galas, dinners, and things of that nature, the commission doesn't normally buy a table.
All right, good to know.
Good. Any other questions, comments, agenda items?
I want to thank the whole staff for helping me get acclimated. It's been because of my ineptitude, it's been a little bit of a challenge, but we're getting there. So thank you all staff people who are here today for being so helpful to
Absolutely. And let us please reach out to Ms. Parker if you have any other questions, of course.
Yep.
So there being no further business.